welcome to this edition of Your Mac Life for Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. I'm your host, Shawn King. Over there is my beautiful wife,
Melissa King.
with the busted up ankle that we got playing golf. Pitch and putt golf, not real golf. Now, how long do you think it's going to be before your leg isn't 18 different shades of purple?
Oh, I think it's gone as purple as what it's going to go now.
How long do you think it's going to be before the purple's gone?
Oh, a week?
Really?
Another week?
See, I'd say about 3 weeks.
Oh.
I think it's going to be quite a long time.
Why?
Yeah. Because it's injuries. I've had enough bruises to know it doesn't go away after a couple of days. The kind of injury you've incurred doesn't go away after a couple of days, no matter how much you want it to. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We'll talk to Jim about stuff that's gone on in the Macintosh community this past week, 2 weeks, because we weren't here last week. We'll talk about that in a second. What do we talk to Jim about? Where's my folder? We're going to talk to Jim about the Department of Justice announced on Tuesday that they're going to be opening up a review of online companies. They didn't name names, but we're going to assume Apple is one of them. Talk to Jim about that. Someone at ZDNet that said Microsoft and Apple should become best buds for at least 10 years. I don't think it's a good idea. And was the gold Apple Watch edition worth it? Talk to Jim about that. Melissa has a question about the Apple Card. We'll talk about that later on. We got some of your emails we're also going to go through as well. So we missed out on last week's show because Melissa and I went off on our very first long motorcycle trip. It was a 4-day trip. We left on Monday and came back on Thursday. 2,010 kilometers, about 1,500 miles over the 4-day period of time. And we learned several valuable lessons on the trip. One of them was we didn't pack enough stuff. Or actually, we didn't pack enough of the right...
I packed enough stuff. He didn't. I'm a very good packer. You would not believe the lack of pack that he did or didn't do. I had long underwear, I had socks, I had spare pants, I had wool sweater, another long sleeve, spare socks, all of it. Shawn had a T-shirt and his motorcycle jacket.
I had more than that. I had several T-shirts.
Okay, he had a few long, short sleeve T-shirts and his motorcycle jacket.
No, Monty. Yes, we've known him longer than you.
There you go. Well, Monty, good. Yes,
I'm
sorry.
Monty. But in my minor defense, the place we were going to is a place called Nelson, British Columbia. Along the way, you pass through Grand Forks and Soyuz and Rosslyn, a bunch of other places. And once you get, is it Princeton when the flora changes? It's
once you get over the pass at Manning Park, and you're dropping down, it gets drier, and the ponderosa pine and the drier, scrubby kind of.
It's really remarkable
for a while.
If anyone's been in the Vancouver area, you think it's all pine trees and a mountainous region, but that area there's actually not that area, but there's an area of British Columbia that's technically, literally a desert. And this area is very dry, very arid, and in the summertime, very, very hot. We're talking upwards in the upper 80s. I know it's not hot for you, Monty, but in the upper 80s to low 90s on a regular basis. We were in a town, I think it was Lytton or Lillooet, one of the two, where the temperature was 20 degrees lower than normal. 20 degrees lower than normal. It was 55 when they're expecting like 85. 20 degrees Celsius. So the whole area we were in was a lot colder than what we could reasonably have expected on the trip. Plus, I think it rained on us every single day.
A little. Sometimes it was not bad. It was like a little bit of rain, not crazy rain.
But it was chilly. I know going from here in Vancouver to the first town we stayed, the first overnight stay was a town called Grand Forks. The temperature was generally around 13 degrees Celsius. That'd be about 57 Fahrenheit, and that sounds fine unless you're on a motorcycle.
Because then the temperature goes down.
You're losing at least 5 degrees just from wind chill on the motorcycle. And then when you get wet and it's raining, now you're losing at least 7 or 8 degrees wind chill. And I've got a jacket and a T-shirt on. It was very, very cold for me. It was very, very, very cold. But the trip itself was just wonderful. It was beautiful scenery. Some spectacular roads. Melissa got to go and visit the home where her son was born, where Damon was born. Tell the audience about that.
Well, we had a beautiful old Doukhobor house that had been transported down from above a plateau above it many years prior. Beautiful, classic old house, Shawn would, I think, agree. And that was where we had bought that house, and that's where I had Damon, who's now 21.
Yeah.
So we pulled up on the motorbike, and I was very emotional and started sort of wandering along and looking at how kind of overgrown and sad a little it looked. But then meanwhile, I turned around and Mr. King was gone. And I was like, Shawn. He had gone around and said, hello, my name's Shawn. My wife lived in this house and 21 years ago, and blah, blah, blah. And they were wonderful. The young man with his beautiful baby daughter. Indiana said, come on in. And they couldn't have been a more perfect visit. Unfortunately, the mum wasn't there. Yeah. She's a nurse. She was working.
It was very cool.
It was very incredible. And we went inside and beautiful.
It was very cool walking around the house with you pointing out, that's the spot where Damon said his first word. And, this is the glass that we had installed, and this is the house.
We put in the bookshelves in the front entrance. It was this is where Damon had his first great big guttural laugh as a baby in arms. And then I went upstairs and showed Shawn our beautiful bedroom upstairs. It was a beautiful home.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been back to an old home. I mean, we were apartment kids. We were private married quarters in the Navy growing up most of the time. The only home I've been back to was my dad's farmhouse back home in Nova Scotia. And even then was just the one time. It still reminded me of all the stuff we had been to, but I'd never been in the situation you were where
it was pretty amazing.
We hung out there for a good 45 minutes.
Oh, I could have stayed. They're just beautiful little girl, and the gardens, and I had done a lot of work, and they looked even more beautiful. And there were chickens, which we didn't have chickens. Yeah, it was an incredible experience.
The Afghan says, I don't know if I'd want to go back. Yeah, some people, if we had, and that was my big worry, was that we were going to come around that corner and the house was going to be a wreck. It was going to be like dilapidated, decrepit.
It was pretty, I mean, they've got a lot of work to do. The fence that their dad had built had fallen down, and but they're working on it. Yeah. It's a big job. Yeah. No, and I mean, it wasn't all good memories. Believe me, there were some scary memories from that place, but overall, it felt really wonderful to be there. I mean, I was pregnant there for that last trimester, and I had an incredible summer.
And then we went in the little town of Nelson, which is a beautiful little town, 10,000 people, situated in the mountains and on the lake. And really, if you ever get a chance to travel, go to Vancouver. It's beautiful. Vancouver Island, beautiful. But if you want something else besides the general area people mostly go to, that would be the place I would recommend you go.
I would too, yeah. The West Kootenays. It's not a heavily traveled area, and even better because I don't really like people very much. So it is stunningly beautiful, never-endingly beautiful. I would live there for 4 or 5 years, and I would stop just to look at the view.
There were some amazing views. And the problem with on the motorcycle, you can't get focused on the view. You just say, oh, that's pretty. Oh, shit. And you fall off the road. So I didn't see as much as Melissa. You saw coyotes.
Yeah, I saw coyote on that last day.
I saw ospreys, which I don't.
Osprey.
Lots of
ospreys.
Here, do we?
No, the ospreys are more interior on the lakes.
Big,
you can see them on the ocean, but they're beautiful. And they build big poles with nests for them, which is nice.
So yeah, the scenery is spectacular. The roads, if you're a car driver or a motorcycle rider, the roads, some of them, the Caslow, New Denver, Nakusp area was spectacularly beautiful, fun riding the roads. We couldn't ride as much as I wanted to because you got a heavily laden motorcycle, but the weather conditions weren't great. It was it rained. We had a few. I think Monday and Tuesday were rain showers.
Yeah.
It was sunny but raining, and that was kind of.
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't free. The last day was the worst.
Yes. Yeah. Coming out of Kamloops.
Yeah, but there's hot springs along the way and beautiful swimming and
all
my gosh. And Nelson's got lots of little breweries and restaurants and cafes. It's a funky place. Met a wonderful guy from North Carolina who was kind of abandoned in Nelson. We met him on the evening we were there. Yeah, it was great.
Poor guy had blown on his knee and was looking for some marijuana to smoke.
He was. So we said, "Welcome to Canada."
That's right.
And then he tried to get some, and he had a bit of difficulty with that, which was kind of strange.
We thought it was very how hard can it be to get dope in Canada?
I know.
Apparently, it's hard in Nelson.
Yeah, he needed a
very
prescription for something. It was very strange, but he was nice.
And then we went to Kamloops, and then the plan was that there's this wonderful road called the 5A. The Coquihalla is the main highway up and down that everyone goes to. It's a high speed straight. It's up the mountain then down the mountain. On a motorcycle, it's boring as hell. So I thought, well, Melissa hadn't been on it. Let's take her on the 5A because it's swoopy and wonderful and windy. And we got about 2 kilometers in, and it was raining so hard, and the wind was blowing so hard, it was moving the motorcycle across the lanes on the bike. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to ride this way. I don't want to ride this way with my wife in the back. I don't want to ride this way with me on the front. Even if I had all the warm weather gear, it was literally dangerous to be on a motorcycle on that road. So we turned around and headed back in the other direction.
Oh my God, I was freezing
Oh,
after.
yeah. Oddly enough, the Ramada Inn in Kamloops, where we stayed, had a Memphis barbecue joint next door. And we went in. We were the only people there, which is never a good sign. The barbecue wasn't bad. The sausage was really good.
No, it was nice. Yeah.
The ribs were not bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to have your first experience of a grown-up drink called an old-fashioned.
I had a couple of one.
Just one.
Just one, and then Shawn and I bought the ingredients, and he's making me some old fashions now here at home. We're grown-ups now.
We're drinking like grown-ups now.
We're drinking even grown-up ice and the orange rind, and we're good.
Pretending like we're grown-ups anyway. Later on, we're going to Melissa has a question about the Apple Card. It's gonna come. The Apple Card's coming out in the U.S. at some point this summer. Apple has said it's not going to make it here to Canada for probably at least until next year. Apple has just applied for the trademarks for Apple Card and Apple Cash, or Apple Pay, I think it is, here in Canada. And the process, because Canadians are conservative by nature, takes a long time. So it's probably going to be 10 months at the least before we'll see that stuff here in Canada. But Melissa was curious about the Apple Card, so we're going to talk about the Apple Card in our I Have a Question segment with Melissa. Up next, though, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. All that and more coming up. Stay tuned. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joining the phone now by our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. The U.S. Department of Justice on Tuesday announced they're opening an investigation into unnamed tech companies. We're all assuming it's Alphabet, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, possibly Microsoft. Do you think this is something Apple should be worrying about?
Well, yeah. I mean, they should be. I mean, yes and no. On the surface, you would think no, but given the fact that the government doesn't understand technology, then you have to say yes, because you never know what they'll come up with.
That's a good point.
Look at what happened with the books thing years ago.
Yep.
You know, Amazon screwing everybody, and Apple gets taken to court.
Yeah,
exactly. It made no sense at all. So yeah, that's the only thing I worry about, is that they don't really understand.
It's a danger for Apple too, because as you said, if the investigators don't grok why Apple does what they do, or why Microsoft does, or Facebook, then they'll pass on recommendations to lawmakers in Congress that could then materially hurt these companies. But the reverse is true too, that these folks might be so dumb they don't get it at all and go, don't worry about it, nothing's going to happen.
Well, I don't think that will be the case, just because they're opening the investigation to actually look for something.
Yeah.
So, an investigator wants to be recognized, and, if you're looking for something, you're going to find something, whether it's big or whether you make it seem big.
Yeah.
So
the other aspect of this is the reverse of that Apple should worry about these kind of things. We read the story that the Wall Street Journal has found that Apple dominates App Store search results to the detriment of competition. Now, whether this is Trip Mickle of the Wall Street Journal, a, shall we say, suspect source to begin with, but Apple has to be wary of even the perception of favoring their own stuff over the competition, don't they?
Oh, absolutely they do, yeah. But I don't think that they do that.
You don't think that they favor their own apps?
No.
I got to say that I would disagree with that, if only because they do favor them in, say, for example, if I have a camera app I want to open up instead of the native camera app, I can't do that. If I want to open up a link in an email, it opens up Safari. If I want to use a email client, it opens up Mail. They kind of force their apps on us.
That's not what we're talking about, though.
No, but what I'm saying is they do force those apps on us in one way, so it's reasonable to assume that they would force them on you in a different way.
No, but they don't.
I know.
So you brought up one topic and then gave a totally different example to prove a point that wasn't even made.
But the point is, Apple's search results do bring Apple's apps to the forefront in a way that doesn't seem organic. How's that?
I do not agree.
Okay.
At all.
All right.
Not at all. I mean, if you look at the App Store, how many of Apple's apps are featured and written about as opposed to third parties? I would have to say almost none.
Yeah. Well, the Wall Street Journal did say that in their testing, and again, it's the Wall Street Journal, so take it with a grain of salt. Apple's apps ranked first in search over 60% of the time. Even
what were they searching for, though?
The article says apps that generated revenue for Apple, like music or books, showed up at the top in 95% of searches related to those terms.
Wait, but what terms?
Music, books, maps. If you search for music, Apple Music shows up prominently at the top, including in an ad, followed by other options like YouTube Music, Spotify, and more. In theory, Spotify is more popular than Apple Music, so when you search for music on the Apple Store, Spotify should be the number one search. It's not.
Well,
nothing? You got nothing for me?
I mean, I don't know what it is that they expect to find.
Well, I think what the point is that Apple's apps are overrepresented in search terms in relation to their importance to that search term. In other words, when you search for music, Spotify is a bigger music service than Apple Music. There's no doubt about that, right? So when you search for Spotify, Spotify should be your first item in the list when you search for the word music. Understood?
Okay.
And they're saying that doesn't happen. And that makes it look like Apple is gaming the system a little bit to their own favor. And I'm not saying they are or they aren't. What I'm saying is Apple has to be very, very wary of this if it is happening, even if it's just a perception of it's happening. Apple's going to make sure that it doesn't look like it, because the DOJ, again, if these guys may or may not be as dumb as we assume other members of Congress are, may look at those kinds of things and jump to the wrong conclusion.
Okay, I'll agree with that, but I don't know that that Apple's actually doing that. I wish I could think of some other terms to search for. I just I wonder how popular. Maybe it's going by popularity on iOS, on the iOS store. Spotify could very well be more popular when you throw in Android.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if that's the case, then, well, they wouldn't take into account Android, would they?
I doubt that very much, yeah.
So,
Apple has stepped up and said that they do not do this, that they have a wide range of criteria. I think they said they have 42 different criteria in how things pop up in their search. And there's really no reason to not believe them. If we trust Apple, we should trust them on things like this as well. But again, it's the perception that Apple can get themselves in trouble with that they'd be careful about.
Well, I mean, if they show the investigators, hey, here are the 42 criteria, here's why this one popped up.
Yep.
I mean, does the Justice Department want them to start messing with the results so that they don't pop up first? That seems unfair.
I think the key is that others have to replicate this story. The Wall Street Journal, again, is a iffy source. Let's see the other folks, the ZDNets, the CNETs, the Verge. Let's see their results when they do the same kinds of searches and see if they have the same kind of bias towards Apple apps when they do those kind of searches. Then I'll take this more seriously. I think it's something Apple can do too. Apple will, if the DOJ comes after them about this, they'll say, look, here's what happens and here's what happens when we do these searches.
Yeah, but you have to look at why it comes up too. I mean, maybe it actually is the most popular app on iOS. Yep. In that case, you're doing people a service by bringing up the most popular app.
Yep.
I think poor Tripp's just looking for something here.
The other comment that came up I found was interesting was that I think this is from Tom Warren. I think this is a fair conversation to have around the App Store, but I'd rather see Apple pressured into allowing iOS to switch default apps. And our friend Ben Bajarin said, agreed, with the fundamental reasoning being it would force Apple to make better apps and services. Do you agree with that?
What would?
If Apple allowed us to switch our default apps in iOS, that it would force Apple to make, Ben says, would force Apple to make better apps.
I don't necessarily think so.
No, neither do I.
I think Apple takes the approach of putting really good apps on the phone by default, so that when you buy a phone, you don't necessarily need to buy another app.
Yep.
You don't need to have another camera app or, anything else. But developers out there are making some great apps. And, a lot of people want another app as their default. And I think that they should be able to have that. But I don't think that it would make Apple make better apps. I don't think Apple's concerned about competing for that space. They're not selling ads. They're not gathering your information. They sold you the phone.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for Apple to do that.
Yeah, I think that the key tipping point on this is the vast majority of people don't even use alternate apps on their iOS devices. They use whatever pops up. They don't go searching for other apps to use. Those who do will find their own workarounds. And even if Apple did allow me, for example, to set up Moments as my camera app, that's not going to force Apple to make a better camera app, because there's going to be so few people making this choice to change defaults, and mostly it's the nerdier, the more knowledgeable folks, and Apple doesn't really necessarily have to worry about those folks. The vast majority of people will use whatever the default app is, even if they know there are other apps out there.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I use Apple's default apps anyway.
Yeah. For the most part, for me too. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a matter of what's good enough for you. You know, as an individual, if the calendaring app is good enough, then that's fine. If you need more, you can go to Fantastical or you know, a lot of other ones that are out there.
Yep.
You know, no matter what the app, you can do that.
Because you're still got to go find that app. Even if Apple did allow you to switch to Fantastical or some other app, you've got to know about that app in order to switch to it.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. If you are using an app on the phone and it's not meeting your needs, you're going to go out and look for an app anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so it's not like, oh, I'm using Apple's calendar and holy crap, this is not doing what I need. I don't know what to do. Where could I possibly look for another calendaring app?
Where could I search?
I just don't know. You know, I mean, people are going to use one that fits their needs, and for the most part, for most normal users, Apple's calendaring app will do that.
I agree. ZDNet, Jason Perlow said, why Apple and Microsoft belong together like a burger and fries. He said, the two companies should bury the bad blood and not merge, but have a 10-year strategic agreement to integrate the two companies' respective platforms and technologies. He said,
why?
Imagine Siri with the back-end capabilities of Cortana, or Apple Watch with Azure's machine learning services.
No thanks.
I know. I read this and thought the same thing. Why? Why would they do that?
I probably like you. I really like Jason.
I don't know. I don't know the guy.
Oh, I really like Jason, but first of all, I don't think that there's any bad blood between Apple and Microsoft anyway. To bring that up, brings us back to early 2000s.
True. Yeah, good point.
And Apple and Microsoft at that point in 98 did bury the hatchet when they got an agreement to make Office for the Mac. So this is history that has already happened. It doesn't need to happen now.
Yeah.
And for Apple to have the back end of Cortana or use Microsoft technologies, I just don't think is worthwhile, because Apple is building its own machine learning and AI capabilities that I think will far exceed what Microsoft has. If anything, it would be Apple bailing out Microsoft at this point.
Yeah, there's an assumption there that Apple or that Microsoft has something Apple needs or something that Apple can't develop on their own. That's obviously not true. You could perhaps make the argument the other way around, that there are things that Microsoft would like to have a piece of Apple about. But as I said in today's YML Daily newsletter, I think the two companies are perfectly happy being frenemies. And they're not even really enemies, as more just casual acquaintances. You know what I mean? They're fine. They I think they have fairly well-defined areas they're focusing on, and there is an overlap there at some point. But if Apple is primarily revenue-wise anyway, an iPhone company, and Windows no longer has a phone, or Microsoft no longer has a phone we're talking about, there's no point. Services, maybe, but those two, the services area diverges so much too. There's no point.
Azure is a good service. I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Yeah.
So, Microsoft is making a lot of headway in that, but Apple's barely in the iCloud service.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
you
right.
know, so
Yeah.
Apple could use some help there for sure. But as far as services go in general, I think Apple is doing a very good job. I mean, they're killing it.
Yeah.
And that shows by the revenue every quarter.
One of the biggest issues I had with his article,
Are you having a party?
Yeah. Hey, be quiet out there! Trying to do a show in here. My wife and stepson are out there having fun. The other issue I had, and this tainted the entire logical piece of the article, made me think this guy was an idiot, and you say he's a nice guy, but okay. He says Apple itself is now at a crossroads. Its platforms have reached a significant level of maturity in which not much else can be done in terms of adding new functionality. Oh my God, here we go with this old cliche that they need a new product out right away. They need another iPhone. They need. He's wrong, right?
He's wrong.
He's dead wrong, right?
Yeah.
He's embarrassingly
Absolutely.
wrong.
Well, I mean, everybody has their own opinion, but he's wrong on that. I mean, you could sit me down today and say, what else could Apple do?
Yep.
On iOS to make it better. Well, I'm sure I could come up with a few things, but nothing compared to what Apple's coming up with. They've got WWDC next year.
That's right.
They're going to have lots of new stuff at WWDC, and maybe one of these years it's going to be you can use your own default apps, or who knows. But there's a lot of stuff that they're doing. So.
There's no need to bring up the old saw that Apple is no longer an innovative company or can't think of anything new to put out. I guarantee that the next product they come out in the iPhone 11 or whatever we're going to call it is going to be something that's new. That's something there's going to be new features, new forms, functionality, whatever it might be. Apple's a very good company for this kind of design decision. Speaking of which, there was an interesting story of sort of semi-profile of new COO Jeff Williams at Apple, and how we're all assuming that he's being groomed to be the CEO of Apple when Tim Cook leaves. Did you know that Tim Cook has a significant number of Apple shares that will be vesting in 2021?
That makes sense. Yeah, I would say that Tim has a significant number of Apple shares that will be investing every year until 2021 and probably after.
No, the big chunk is in 2021.
Well, that was his initial CEO shares. So yeah.
And so the assumption is, or the prediction is, that if Tim Cook was going to resign voluntarily to go off and pursue philanthropic endeavors or whatever it might be, that would be a good time. Here's this new guy, Williams, coming along, spend 2 years grooming him to take over from Apple. Cook leaves in 2021. Everything's smooth. It's a good transition. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's a logical thing. The interesting aspect of this is how many people are trying to contrast and compare Williams to Cook and or Steve Jobs, which brings up the question I'll ask you. Does Apple right now today, and let's say 10 years into the future, need more of a Tim Cook CEO or more of a Steve Jobs CEO?
Look, here's how I feel about that. I will tell you right now. I got to have a drink of beer first.
All right, you do that.
Okay. Every company in the world would love to have a Steve Jobs CEO.
Yes.
Nobody is going to have one.
No.
Most companies in the world would love to have a Tim Cook CEO. But every CEO is different. And you could go out and find a perfect match of what you think Tim Cook is, and he's going to run the company differently than what Tim did. Jeff will run the company differently if he's the successor, and I've been hearing that for years, that Jeff will be the successor. but he would run it differently than what Tim does.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he will keep the same values as Tim kept from Steve, the same values of the company. He inserted some of his own values in there, and Jeff will do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't it's silly to compare one person to another and try to determine if he's going to be a great CEO. And I say again, and you and I have laughed about this in the past, the people that are comparing and contrasting these and asking whether this guy will make a great CEO have never run a company in their life.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they probably couldn't run a company the size of Apple if they tried. So I don't put any weight into anything any of these people say. And even if you brought the CEO of the second largest company in the world and said, this is what this guy thinks, it still doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because Jeff is going to run the company differently than what Tim did. And let's not forget, I mean, Steve was a great person. He was a horrid person. He was everything that we love about and hate about humanity.
Yeah.
But when you look at Tim had put the stock a lot higher than what Steve did.
Yes, he did.
I just you just can't do the types of things that people are trying to do, the compare and contrast. It just doesn't work. It won't work.
I think the most interesting thing that came out of that Bloomberg story was the little tidbit of information that said the 18-karat Apple Watch edition sold only in the low 10,000s. 10,000 units sold of a minimum of $10,000 each. Man, Apple made $100 million in the first generation edition gold Apple Watch. You think that gold Apple Watch was worth it for Apple, not necessarily for those who bought it?
Wow, $100 million. You know what? If they want to give that to me, just, as a gift, I'm okay with that. I really am. I mean, it's hard to say that. Was it a super, billions of dollars successful? No, but that's not why they made it. They knew that they weren't going to sell those. And, did they cover their costs? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And Johnny got to put out a fashion accessory. And, all is good in the world.
Do you believe that with Williams is the one, according to these stories, that switched the focus of the Apple Watch from a fashion accessory to a health and fitness accessory? That, to me, makes it sound like he knew more about where this market was going than Ive did. Maybe that was one of Ive's blind spots. That's what I said when the Apple Watch came out, that the way Apple was positioning it was as a fashion accessory, and you can't rely on fashion. Fashion changes on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. I think it's a much better direction for Apple to go with the Apple Watch as a good-looking watch, but one whose more important functionality is health and fitness.
We're trying to compare apples and oranges here. Johnny's about design. Johnny has nothing to do with the functionality of the product. So Johnny wanted to build a watch. Apple wanted a watch. Johnny built a watch. Now, in doing that, Johnny wanted a fashion accessory. So they gave him the gold watch and said, giddy up.
Yeah.
But I think when Apple put out the watch, I don't think that there was ever a change from a fitness product to or a watch, a fashion product to a fitness product. I don't think that change ever happened. I think that was always there because that functionality was always in the watch. I think what surprised Apple is how much people used it for fitness. And that's when things after the first generation watch, that's when things started to change.
Yeah.
And they started getting more deeply into that. I think it was more us that changed it than Jeff.
It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, I don't think it certainly wasn't Johnny dictating that. Apple put the features in that it wanted for the watch, and you could listen to music, and all of this stuff kind of added up to this great fitness thing. Now, what would have happened if Apple came out and said, hey, we got a great fitness tracker for you? Then people just would have thought it was a Fitbit. But that's not what they did, because they didn't know at that time what it was. So
I think it's a good way of looking at it. I think that does, in my mind anyway, the way you've described it, clear up that change, that very obvious change from what seemed to be a focus on fashion that was presented in Paris during the Paris runway shows. It was a pop-up store along with, I think, Coach or Hermes, things like that. And it was a big focus on watch bands from Hermes and Louis Vuitton type stuff. But once, as you said, once the market told Apple where to go with it, that's when they took off. And now it's become as we used to say about the iPad, there is no smartwatch market. There is the Apple Watch and everything else.
Well, let's not forget that people will still switch out bands.
Sure.
They will use, I have one of those sport bands.
Yeah.
Others are going to use, a Hermes one, or they're going to use the Milanese Loop. They're still going to use all of these different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's still a fashion thing, but they're all over the place now, too. So
the sorry, we just got we got an email from Mark Pullman in Nogales, Arizona. Hey, Shawn, with privacy a big deal nowadays, to further create a more cohesive ecosystem of products, it seems Apple should create its own VPN for Apple users. Do you or Jim see anything in the Apple universe that would cause Apple not to make this happen?
I don't think that they need to make it happen.
Yeah, I think as Mac users or Apple users, we've got to be very wary of this idea of, I have a problem, Apple should fix it.
I understand what he's talking about and where he's coming from with this, but I just don't think it's something that Apple would ever get into. I mean, Apple puts the availability there for you to have a VPN if you want one, but I don't think most people feel that they need one. Well, most people probably don't know that they might need one.
I was going to say, yeah, most people don't know.
That's the point.
Most people don't know what a VPN is, whether they need it or not. And I think it would require Apple to have either a marketing, advertising, convincing campaign for the average consumers, or make it so simple, mindless, and easy that users didn't even know they were doing it. Very much like a firewall now that's built in, it's on automatically, and Apple takes over that. But then Apple would get in trouble, because the way a VPN works is that everything has to go through Apple servers, and that would cause a big stink too. And there's no way Apple is going to create or use or become a VPN. They don't want to have that kind of access to your data. They don't want to see your data in that way.
Well, and they could probably still encrypt it all so that they couldn't see it. But yeah, still, I mean, then Apple would basically become this gigantic ISP around the world, because all of your stuff is. I just can't see them doing that. I mean, Apple tries to, from how I view it, Apple tries to protect us against the biggest threats out there that they see to our privacy. And one, to be perfectly honest, is the company itself. Yes. Apple does a lot to protect us and to alert us to the fact that they don't track us, that everything that we send is encrypted, and they don't know anything about us.
Yeah.
Unlike I don't know, Facebook.
Yeah, really. Monty says Apple being a VPN provider doesn't really fit in with Apple's position on privacy. They don't want to know that much about the end user.
Yep.
The other thing is this also brings up the people say Apple that they want Apple to become a cell phone provider, MVNO they're called, where Apple would buy cell service from a Verizon or a Telos here in Canada and then sell it on down to the user. Apple's not going to do that either. It's not the business they want to be in, they need to be in, or even frankly that they should be in.
Yeah, I mean, then again, we didn't think Apple would be in the credit card business either.
True.
So, so you never know what business they could be in at some point. But, if you could buy a phone, if you went to an Apple store and bought a phone and could be signed up on the Apple network, would you do that?
Yep.
I bet a lot of people would.
Yep, I agree.
And then, are you going to ask me about Facebook?
Yes, let's talk about Facebook. Facebook was hit by the largest fine ever from the FTC, $5 billion, and Mark Zuckerberg's stock price went up.
Yep.
What's wrong with this picture?
Well, first I thought it was $6 billion, but $5 billion, okay. So his stock went up because it could have been and should have been a whole lot worse.
Add a zero, at the very least. Add a damn zero.
And it wasn't. So, yeah, his stock went up. So how about that? $6 billion. Keep in mind now, the company doesn't sell a physical product.
Nope.
And I believe the revenue last quarter was $26 billion.
Yes.
And they fined them $6 billion after a years-long investigation.
Yep.
When you start to look at that, you have to think, well, what's the point?
Yep, exactly.
A $6 billion fine years ago would have, that would have rattled somebody.
Yep.
I mean, he's shaking out his cushions on the couch now, and he'll have enough to pay that. It's nothing.
Mosquito says it was a slap on the wrist, and I would argue it wasn't even a slap on the wrist. It was a tickle on the wrist. It literally didn't affect the company in any other way but positively, which is insane.
Yep. And there's another investigation by the SEC that they settled for $100 million.
Yep. Again, chicken feed.
I mean, yeah, he found that in a sock.
Nothing's going to change at Facebook until something is done that forces this company to reevaluate the way it does things. And these minuscule fines, although they sound massive, by the way, that money isn't going to Facebook's users. That money's going into the pocket of the FTC and the U.S. government. Until they're forced to change in some functional way. Someone said today that Facebook has no competition. They're functionally a public utility and should be operated as such in the public good. I think everyone at Facebook has made their money. They've made their billions and billions of dollars. The way they run the company should be taken away from them and turned over to a nonprofit to be run in a better way. Hell, Jim, you and I could run Facebook better than these assholes do.
Well, part of the settlement was that there has to be a separate group that overlooks what the company is doing.
Yep.
But that's elected by the board.
Exactly, yeah.
So yes, the FTC will have regulators and things looking, but I think Zuckerberg has to testify or something every 6 months or every year and say that, yes, he's complying. Okay.
Yeah, and that's all he's got to do. He doesn't have to prove anything. They don't have to have any kind of evidence that they're doing what they say they do. And if they do get caught, Zuckerberg will do the same thing he's done before. I'm very sorry. We'll try to do better next time. Every single time this has happened, that's what the press release says. We're very sorry. We'll try to do better next time. And it's just not good enough anymore.
Zuckerberg made enough money with the stock going up that, I mean, let's be honest. He's not paying for this. The company is.
Yep, that's right.
But his own wealth went up because the stock went up. I mean, if I were him, I'd just bail at this point.
As a new IRC member, Rebecca says, as long as the advertisers keep shoveling the money into Facebook, not much will change. And she's right. There's no incentive for Facebook to make changes. This $5 billion charge is just the cost of doing business, and it's a minor cost. It's not going to hurt them at all in the long run. So there's no price to be paid for continuing just doing what they're doing.
Hi, Rebecca. Rebecca is exactly right, but there's even a bigger point here. The advertisers are only paying because the people keep using it.
True.
So if the people stop using it, then the advertisers will stop paying. But I mean, it's a big hornet's nest of crap because the average user only cares about what they see. Do they see their data being taken and used? No. They see that they can talk to an old friend, or they see that, they see all these posts from people that they knew 20 years ago. That's what they see. And they're not going to give that up. And every time this crap happens about Facebook, I say the same thing, and it always turns out to be true because the average user doesn't care.
Yep. Until it affects the average user, they're not going to care.
Right. And even if it does, I mean, even if there was a story that broke that said, whoa, I'm an average user and Facebook screwed me. And people are going to say, oh, look, there's an update from an old friend on Facebook. I got to answer that.
That's right.
I mean, that's the way that it goes. And it's not going to change. So, and Facebook is still going to steal your data and they're still going to sell it. And
now, I know you're a fan of big, fancy German cars, but after this, and this happened a year and a half ago, and BMW is just now implementing this, BMW is going to charge an $80 annual fee for you to continue to be able to use CarPlay, Apple CarPlay, in your M3 and other BMW products. I love your line, short, simple, to the point on The Loop about this story. What did you say?
Fuck you.
Exactly. Now, a lot of people are trying to jump on Apple about this, saying, oh, yeah, I wonder if Apple gets the 30%. To be clear, Apple makes no money from CarPlay after it's installed in the car. Apple charges BMW or VW or Ferrari, whatever it is, to put CarPlay in. They get no revenue after that moment. This is entirely on BMW gouging their customers for $80 or $300 more, and it's an amazing story.
Well, if you want CarPlay in your car with BMW, it costs you, I think, $280.
Yeah, almost $300
to get it.
Yep.
To get it installed.
Yep.
So BMW is basically getting their cost back from Apple right there. And this is per car.
Yeah.
It costs you. So $280 to put it in. Then they're going to charge you basically a renewing subscription.
Yep.
Just to be able to plug your phone in that you own into a car that you own, and that you paid extra to have the functionality of CarPlay. They're going to charge you $80 a year. Oh, I think not.
No, not going to happen.
it would be a cold day in hell before I bought a BMW.
Would you ever be in the market for BMW? I know you used to have a fancy Lexus.
Yeah.
What's the brand of shopping cart you push around now?
Safeway.
Safeway. Okay, I just want to check.
Yeah.
So not
Safeway.
high end, but not buy low. You know, you're in the middle range there.
It's got a stereo in it.
That you stole.
Doesn't work, but it's got a stereo.
It's in there, exactly.
I push the cassette in and I sing, and it's the next best thing.
Speaking of singing, DJ Khaled or I don't know who the guy is Apple Music's first artist in residence. Who would you put as an artist in residence at Apple, Jim?
Anybody but him.
He kind of looks like a young fat you.
Well, sorry, the line's bad.
That's right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, if I was going to do something like that, I mean, I know why they're doing it, because they're chasing the popularity.
Yep.
But if I was doing it, I would put somebody, that actually has done something in music over the past 30 years that has contributed. I mean, come on.
And that's kind of harsh. The man's got 16 million followers on Instagram now. Come on.
Okay, well, whatever. See, that just proves it, that they're looking for, it's a popularity thing. It's not about who influenced music the most.
Yeah.
But that's who I would pick.
He is the flavor of the month. That's why Apple's doing this. He'll do this artist in residence thing for whatever period of time, whether it be a month or 2 months or whatever. Then Apple will bring along someone else who's the next hot flavor. Maybe Taylor Swift or Justin Timberlake. It'll be that ongoing thing. I don't think this is anything more than just a popularity contest of Apple's going to ask these people to bring their fans to Apple Music. They're going to assume that a large percentage of DJ Khaled's fans are not Apple Music listeners, Beats music listeners, and he'll post on Instagram, "Hey, come listen to this," and Apple will get a flood of new. This is just marketing. I don't think it means anything music-wise. I wish it did, but I think this is just marketing on Apple's part.
I mean, there are a lot of people that have done a lot of things in music for a long time that would fit that role.
Yep.
If you look at Elton John or Roger Daltrey from The Who or Mick Jagger or ZZ Top, any of these bands. I know that I'm picking the rock, but you can pick in country or any genre of somebody that would be worthy of a title like that.
Yeah.
And install them in there.
Yep, I
put
agree.
a conductor in there. Whatever you want, but this is popularity.
Yeah, I agree. You and I were both there 20 years ago on Sunday, New York City, sweltering, hot, ridiculous city to be in the middle of July, when Apple announced not only the iBook laptop, which... What was your first impression of the iBook when Jobs showed that on stage with that little orange and blue color in the handle? Do you remember your first impressions?
It was so different.
I thought it was a toy.
I know, but I think that's when you kind of knew that because of the iMac and then the iBook, you kind of knew that Apple was on a different path than everybody else. Yep. And, the iMac wasn't just a one-off thing. Now they're doing this. It was a big thing.
I remember sitting there in the audience thinking, okay, I can see the appeal of that. The iMac was a very appealing, consumer-friendly piece of plastic, and this is going to be the same way, but in a laptop form factor with a handle. Even though the handle didn't look good, it was something a lot of us always wanted in our laptops. And so I thought, okay, this could be kind of neat. And then they did the Wi-Fi demonstration. You remember that?
No.
Steve Jobs he was working on the iBook, just tapping away, using the mouse, that kind of thing. Then he picked it up and walked to the other side of the stage and searched another website. We were all like, "Huh? The hell's he doing? How's he doing that? Is that magic? What that?" And he did the hula hoop thing around it to prove it didn't have magical wires. And he was introducing consumer Wi-Fi, this thing that had been around for a while in big offices and big companies, usually from routers from a company called Buffalo that didn't work very well or were a gigantic pain in the ass to configure. And here was Apple bringing this amazing technology that is now ubiquitous around certainly the developed world. And this was the first demonstration of that. This was the demonstration where Steve Jobs had Phil Schiller go up on the platform and jump into an airbag carrying the iBook clutched fervently to his chest. And we're all like, yeah, when Jobs says jump, you jump.
Yeah.
I thought it was an amazing demonstration, and even more so than the iBook. I was more fascinated by this idea of this Wi-Fi thing where you could wander around your home or your apartment or outside. You could go outside with your laptop and work on this new internet thing. It was the coolest thing in the world.
Well, I remember in my house in Nova Scotia drilling holes in the floor to run Cat 5
Oh,
cable.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Up through the floor so that I could sit in my chair now with a laptop.
That's right.
And have internet. While I was sitting in my chair,
Yep.
I didn't have to go downstairs to the office where everything was wired in.
Yeah.
And then when Wi-Fi came, I mean, that was just, then I could go anywhere.
And the fact that it was relatively inexpensive Wi-Fi, you had to get your own router and you had to get your own airport card in your machine, but it wasn't that hugely expensive for that much convenience. And we learned about this Wi-Fi stuff, and now you can't imagine life without it. Now
Yeah.
I'm on BC Ferry traveling back and forth from Vancouver to our home here in Gibson. About halfway through, the ferry's Wi-Fi dies just because we're so far away. And I'm like, you son of a bitch, it's free internet access. It doesn't cost me a dime, and I'm bitching about it.
That's the way it is now.
It
isn't
is.
I mean, we expect it all the time.
And now we got Wi-Fi in planes flying 35,000 feet above our heads.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
Oh.
Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Shawn.
Talk to you next week, buddy. See ya.
Bye.
Folks, when we come back, we're going to have Melissa's I Have a Question. She's got a question about the Apple Card. What is it? Well, I guess I'll let her ask the question. Why would I ask the question? That would be just dumb, Shawn. Don't do that. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining us here this Wednesday, or if you tuned in by the archive, thank you for joining us there. I have to do this because most of the audience didn't see this in the pre-show, but I've got to show this video of golf
See? See?
That was so much fun. It was such
Takes talent.
takes talent.
Mm-hmm.
Takes talent to hit a ball just right on the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
The very top of it, make it go straight up and down. So Melissa has a question for her I Have a Question segment. Melissa.
My question is, why would I get an Apple card as opposed to my regular credit card that I have now with all of its perks?
You wouldn't.
Oh. Okay, that's my
That was
question.
easy.
Thanks, folks.
That was easy. The Apple Card is really interesting. It's the whole idea of why would Apple even get involved in this kind of stuff. But the logic is, the argument of that is Apple gets involved in things that they think they can make money on and provide services for their customers. Back in 2007, when the rumors came out that Apple was going to be selling this phone, we were all like, the hell Apple know about phones? They're a computer company. They don't know about phones. And yet, look what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Music's still on, says Mac.
oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, guys. Shush. Thanks, you guys. So you can never count out why Apple does these things. They are oftentimes smarter than certainly me and a lot of other people. So when they do things, you have to sort of look at not whether you think it's a good idea or not, whether it's a good idea for Apple. So Apple thinks they can make money on this and or provide a service to their customers. Okay, that's the bottom line. From the customer point of view, does the Apple Card offer or do things that are different from other cards? Yes and no. The Apple Card at its base is just another credit card. It's just like your MasterCard, your Visa card, your American Express. It does the same sort of things. You give the card to a vendor. The vendor gives you a product, and then you pay for that product at some indeterminate point in the future. Apple has said they're going to change the way credit cards work. One of the ways that credit card companies make the vast majority of their money is late fees. Same with banks. And people don't realize that. The MasterCard, Visa, the major credit card companies make a lot of money simply on your late fees.
Absolutely.
On your interest rates and the extra the yearly charge. They'll charge you for a card, the usurious insurance or interest rates they charge you on purchases, all that kind of stuff, just for the convenience of paying for something later on. Well, Apple is saying we're not going to do that. We're not going to charge you late fees. We're not going to charge you insane interest rates. They're still charging you interest rates.
Oh, well.
Not as insane as
That's kind of nice.
Apple's adding some features to it to help you manage your money. You'll better be able to see where you're spending your money on what different things. So they'll look at your purchases for you and say, all right, this month or this week or this period of time, you spent this much money on food or this much money at Starbucks. And you'll go, oh, shit, that's too much money on Starbucks. I should cut back. Or I'm spending, you want a budget. I want to know how much money have I spent on groceries in the past month. It'll be really easy to see. You can do that with your present credit card. It's a pain in the ass to do it. But Apple's going to break it down in a really pretty kind of graphy kind of thing.
Yes.
The other thing that's fairly common among credit cards nowadays is this idea of cash back. You buy something and the credit card company gives you a bit of a kickback, 2% or 1% or 3% or 4% or some percentage. Depending on how that credit card company does it. Ours, for example, CIBC, at the end of each year, calendar year in December, they will calculate our cash back on the various ways that we get cash back and give us a lump sum amount on our credit card. On our credit card. They're not sending you a check. They're putting it on your credit card.
Mm-hmm.
So if your credit card's at zero, you'll get a bonus on your credit card. Otherwise, probably a monthly payment, probably $300, $400, depends on what it is. So that's good. That's good.
Yes.
So Apple's got these things that it has. It's also going to be very much associated with your iPhone. Your Apple Card first and foremost is on your iPhone. Apple doesn't really see you as carrying around the credit card because your Apple Pay, they want you to do all your payments. You can use your present credit card on your iPhone. You don't need to carry around your credit card. But Apple also will have a physical card that you can carry around to show off, kind of thing. But Apple mostly wants you to pay using your iPhone, using Face ID or Touch ID or whatever it is that your phone is capable of doing, and that's more secure. That's safer, because if we lose our credit card, if it's lying in the street, someone can still use it. Not for a lot; they ain't buying a car on it, but they can use it to buy a meal at a restaurant. Because when's the last time a waitress asked you for ID for your credit card purchase? They don't. You know, we went to restaurants yesterday, and I'm using Melissa's card. It says Melissa Berryman on it. Mm-hmm. It's not a surprise. I'm not Melissa. I don't look like a Melissa. But no one questions it anymore. I don't know if they even look. No one looks at the card name anymore.
No, they don't.
No one checks the signature on the back.
True.
All that stuff doesn't matter. And with Tap, I can just tap my card. I don't got to even put in a PIN number.
No.
For anything. Matter of fact, now it's gotten so bad, I've forgotten my PIN numbers. Whenever one machine does that, it's like, shit, what's my PIN number? I don't use it anymore. So if you lose your iPhone, at least now you know your credit card is secure for that period of time.
Right.
So there are some privacy and security advantages to the Apple Card. And by the way, you can go to apple.com/Apple Card to get more information about what Apple will offer. It's going to be interesting to see how people work this. But what really bothers me is that there's not enough talk from especially Macintosh-focused websites about whether or not the Apple Card's actually a better card than a Visa or a MasterCard. They're saying, yeah, this is going to be cool, it's going to be fun, da, da, da. Dave Mark on The Loop posted this morning. He said that you should use your Apple Card for everything. And I said, no, you shouldn't. Yes, you could use it for Apple Store purchases, because Apple will give you a bit of a discount on those kinds of things. But I honestly wouldn't use, if I had an Apple Card, I wouldn't use it to buy, say, a TV, because there's not enough incentive for that. For example, the Apple Card has no price protection. Our CIBC credit card, if we buy something in 90 days, or I think it's 30 days, up until 30 days, if the price drops, CIBC Visa gives us the difference back.
Well, and if something happens, you can get your money back.
And then there is the instance where
Not me.
She wasn't anywhere near it. I drowned the drone.
Very expensive drone.
Very expensive drone. $2,500 in drone. And it fell into the ocean. And I called up our Van City Visa and said, can I get another one? And they said, yeah, fill out these forms. I filled the forms out. They gave us $2,500.
They did. No questions, not many questions asked.
Apple isn't going to do that.
Yeah, so no, I'm not getting an Apple credit card.
If I buy a product that's got a 1-year warranty, say I buy a big screen TV, I buy a product that's got a 1-year warranty. It breaks a Sony. It breaks after 8 months. I call up Sony. They give me the
Visa. You call up Visa.
Call up Visa, and they either replace it or they get it fixed. 1 year, 1 day later, I'm screwed. Sony's not going to.
Visa's not going to reimburse you for that.
No, sorry. Sony isn't going to reimburse you for that warranty. But Visa has got a double warranty. So whatever warranty you have on the product, they double it. So if it's a 1 year, you get 2 years. So now I can call up Visa and go, a year and a half later, TV broke, you fix it. Apple Card doesn't offer that. Car rental insurance. You know, we were going to, when we went to Lisbon, we had planned, before we got deathly ill, we had planned on renting a car to go to Nazaré. And we would have rented the car on the credit card. We would have gone to Hertz, and they would have said, do you want the insurance for the car? We would have gone, nope. Our credit card covers car rental insurance.
That's right, it does, yeah.
It covers, there's certain amounts of trip insurance.
There is,
that it covers. That medical insurance it covers. Apple Card covers none of those things. So I'm telling people, don't get the Apple Card. There's no, if you just have or want just one credit card, I don't think the features that Apple has on the Apple Card are worth losing all of those features from other people's cards. Because primarily, Visa and MasterCard, I guarantee you right now, are working on the other aspects of the Apple Card that Apple is offering. The daily cash back, which I think is silly. I don't need 14 cents a day.
No, I don't want to know about that.
Don't care. But the money management features and the certainly lower interest
Well, other
rate.
credit cards do money management features.
Yes, but they're going to do this in an app. You'll be able to go to the CIBC app, and what I'm saying is they're going to match what Apple's doing.
Oh, yes, I see.
And then surpass them because they're doing so many other things now. Right now, cashback and those kinds of things are table stakes. Every card should have them. Every card should have price protection. Every card should have warranty. Every card should have car rental insurance. Should. And the Apple Card doesn't.
Right.
So while it's definitely cool, that little card with the Apple logo on it might be kind of cool.
I can see why all the nerds want one.
But
I don't want one.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I don't. For me, as normally a grown up, for something as important as credit, I don't think it's nearly good enough to warrant, unless you buy a lot of stuff from the Apple Store. It's not enough to warrant all the minuses. Now, and that's what I'm saying. If you only have one credit card, I wouldn't make the Apple Card my only credit card.
Maybe it could be your backup or something.
And everyone, by the way, should have a backup credit card, as Melissa and I found out in Lisbon when our credit card got cut off. And if we didn't have a backup credit card, we'd be literally begging in the streets.
Oh, it was horrible.
So you should always have a backup card that you don't use unless you need it for travel and that kind of stuff. But I don't see enough of a. By the way, Rebecca points out, no, not Visa or MasterCard. It's issuing banks that make money on the bank fees and interest rates. But the Visa and MasterCard still make buttloads of money off those cards. So be careful about how excited you get over this kind of stuff. Take a good, long, hard look at what credit cards are available to you and whether or not the Apple Card is the single card you'd want to use, or whether you use it as an adjunct to other cards. It's an interesting idea, but I don't think it's going to be. It's certainly not going to be something that we want or need.
MacMan's so sweet.
Is he?
Yeah. He said, we're talking about us losing our credit card. He said, no, you would have been okay because we would have helped you.
Oh, yes, that's true. Thank you, MacMan. That is very sweet.
Very sweet.
Our friend Rich Madison says, in a recent show, you and Melissa had a discussion of Australian words.
Australian
words.
Australia.
And phrases and their meanings I found very interesting, particularly the food-related ones. Then guess what I saw in a grocery store the other day? Tim Tams! He said, I'd never seen these biscuits before, so naturally I had to buy some. Oh my God. They are delicious. The store had 3 or 4 versions, but I had to try the original to establish a baseline. Nerds. You gotta love nerds. That's so smart, Rick. For comparison to similar domestic cookies, like many wafer-based sweets, Canadian and British, they are addictive. I could just sit with an open package and go through the entire tray without coming up for air. I've done that.
He hides the Tim Tams because Shawn, being the kind of rigid nerd that he is, he can't. If there isn't enough ice cream left in the ice cream container, he'll go no. I can't have any. So he has to have the whole package. We have to get Tim Tams for the family and Tim Tams for Shawn so he can have them by the bedside and eat them all.
Yeah, I've got no defense. I can't do it.
And with his M&Ms, he has this little thing, and it's got to be exactly where it's got to be filled up to. If it's not enough, he'll go, it's not enough. If it's too much, I eat them.
But
you didn't know that, did you?
But you know why I do that, right? Because I want my fair share of M&Ms, but I have to be in a little bowl, because otherwise I'll eat all of them.
No, but in that little bowl, they have to be at this exact
That's right, because if there's too few, I'm getting ripped off. I'm not getting my fair share of M&Ms. So they've got to be at that line.
Monty, you go buy Tim Tams. Do they have Tim Tams in America?
Oh, well, Richard Madison's on.
Richard's in. Okay.
He said,
Sorry, Richard, I wasn't listening.
He says, unless I can exert some self-control, I'll be holding you guys responsible for any weight gain I experience this summer. Thanks a bunch.
Oh, no. You go for a run now.
That's right. Scott Randall says, I'm in the midst of listening to the latest show. I think you made an error in your conversation with Jim. I don't believe the new MacBook Air has a touch bar. And looking at the picture on the website, I don't see it. So you do have a choice of not getting a laptop with touch bar. On another note, no one has mentioned that the older non-Retina MacBook Air is no longer available. That Air is better because it has the older keyboard and more ports. I can't understand why, unless you're doing intricate work on photos, you'd need Retina on a 13-inch screen. It makes everything small and hard to see. I sincerely doubt that anyone doing heavy-duty photo editing will be doing it on a MacBook Air. So the Retina screen on that machine is pointless, just my 2 cents. You can always buy the older models used or refurbished. Got a nice email from, this is the most amazing name I think I've heard at least this year, from Xaviero Samson, who, by the way, lives in Amsterdam.
Oh, hello, Xaviero.
Xaviero. He says, hi, guys. I hope you enjoyed your trip and stay healthy. Regards from Amsterdam.
Oh, that's lovely.
Ong Scott, sorry, Ong, I can never say your name right. Here I am again, just a tip this time, for accessing the Apple TV remote without unlocking the phone. You go to Settings, Face ID, Passcode, and then allow access when locked, and you can turn on the control center where the remote control will be on the lock screen of your iPhone. Thanks, Ong. I appreciate that. What's something else? Wasn't there another one? I think I got a... Oh, I thought I did. I didn't. I'm wrong.
Monty's put the webs www.timtamus. I got to see this. It's not a cookie. It's a Tim Tam.
Is that the website?
America, meet Tim Tam.
What?
Track him down. Craving Tim Tams? Now we got ya. The Australian phenomenon. Phenomenon.
Oh,
Phenomenon.
Okay. Yeah, TimTamUSA.com is the website if you're interested in.
Thank you, Monty.
In getting your own Tim Tam fix. They are frickin' delicious. I didn't know they didn't call it a cookie. What do you Australians call it?
Biscuits.
Biscuits. So same as the Brits.
Yeah, we don't cookies are.
Yeah, the Australian phenomenon.
Nom.
These never last in my
house.
It's so true.
It's twice.
Yeah,
Nom.
They don't. Okay, that's it for tonight's show, folks. Thanks very much for you guys for being here. Thanks everyone listening in via the live, via the archive. Thanks to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for being here each and every week. Thanks, as always, to everyone who sends emails. Emails, as always, to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Love getting emails from you guys, so please keep them coming. Until next week, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!
Bye.